After making cheese videos on almost all of the bosses and fighting them all so many times, we decided it's time to rank the difficulty of these boss fights, and as an added bonus, I'll tell you the best way to beat each of them. I'm only going for the 19 most difficult bosses, otherwise we'll be here all day. Let me know what boss you struggled with the most. Gideon. I'm sure it comes as no surprise, but the very first on our list is Gideon. He may be all-knowing, but he didn't see this coming.
Go.
Die, nerd!
Gideon is ranked easiest on our list because if you've got a friend with you, you can literally wail on him with a sword and he'll never get any attacks out. Rivers of Blood works really well for this. If you don't have a friend, it might be best to have your mimic tier fill in, or you could jump in our Discord. I'm sure plenty of the people in there would be happy to help. Gideon hasn't caused me any issues in any of my 9 playthroughs, and I'm sure he'll stay at the bottom of this list. Red Wolf. The Red Wolf can be a little tricky to the uninitiated. He bounces around so much, making it hard to get any attacks on him, which can overwhelm, especially as you'll be coming into this boss room from fighting a bunch of those mage idiots. If you're shooting magic, don't. Not only will you miss 90% of your shots because he flips around, but you'll also do very little damage. The trick is to slap him about with a melee weapon. I'd recommend chucking Bloodhound Step on a big sword, so you can move around just as quickly as the Red Wolf. Then once he lands, smack him with your sword, then watch that health bar drain. Reichard. For some reason, a lot of people in our Discord struggle with Reichard, but he's actually incredibly easy. Whether or not you've seen our video to cheese him, you literally just need to grab a friend or join our Discord if you don't have one. We have thousands of players and they're looking to help. Now grab yourself the Serpent Hunter weapon, it's on your left when you walk in. Then get either side of Reichard and just power attack him until he dies. He'll just keep turning around in circles and he'll get caught in a loop. Godric. Godric can surprise you the first time you fight him with that second phase dragon hand crap, but once you learn the patterns, it's incredibly easy to dodge his fire attacks. Hitting him with Rotten Breath and using the Rotten Stray summon that you get near Celia Understair will destroy him in minutes. This way you can stay away from him too. If you want to get a little cheesy, you could always inflict Scarlet Rot and then stay away from him completely. His health will slowly tick down and he'll never go into his second phase. Golden Godfrey. Not endgame Godfrey, we're talking about his slightly see-through spectral form. The first Godfrey fight is definitely where you'll start to see a real uptick in difficulty. You're in a real small space relative to the size of this monster, but that shouldn't scare you, especially if you're on New Game Plus. Just whip out Rivers of Blood and your Mimic tier summon and go to town on poor Godfrey. If it's your first time fighting, use Bloodhound Step because he hits like a truck. Don't use magic or status effects, he's not really weak to anything, so just get out your highest level summon and give him some of that good old-fashioned physical damage. Margie. Okay, so Margie is quite high on this list because on your first playthrough, he can feel impossible. Not only is it a small area to fight in, but you can easily fall off to your death. And to make things worse, Margie can clear the whole area in one jump and land on top of you. This fight was surprisingly difficult for an early boss, but he's extremely weak to poison damage, so you can actually get this done with no problem. Pop over to Murkwater Cave to buy Margie Shackle from Patches, use it outside the Margie boss door around 5 times, summon in the jellyfish that you get from the Stormhill Shack, and let that jellyfish sting the crap out of Margie. Margie won't be able to move thanks to that little shackle glitch that you just did, and the jellyfish will poison him to death without breaking him out of the frozen state. Ranala. Ranala is a pretty difficult boss. Well, her first phase is easy, but she can really pack a punch in her second phase. She'll blast a Comet Azure at you as soon as the fight starts, which can easily catch any newbies off guard. Even worse, if you don't defeat Ranala quick enough, she'll start summoning in allies to help her. These can range from a pack of wolves to a massive dragon, so try getting it done quickly. Ranala, like the Red Wolf, can be taken down very fast using melee. Your best bet, again, is Rivers of Blood. All Tree Sentinels. Yes, any of the Tree Sentinels are way harder than Ranala. I'd bet that nobody came out of the tutorial for the first time and successfully killed the Tree Sentinel. No way. On top of this, the draconic tree sentinels dish out insane amounts of damage because they're wielding fire and electricity powers. These guys are tough, but one of the best ways to bring them down is Rotten Breath. They'll lose huge chunks of health from the initial blast, and the Scarlet Rot status effect will usually stick with them on the first try, and it might be worth using a summon versus these guys as you'll need a good distraction. Radon. Radon was one of the hardest bosses for my first playthrough, but in my last 3, I've managed to kill him in under 5 seconds. On top of this, there are many ways to cheese him, which we've shared multiple ways to do. Radon definitely deserves a high place in this list for his gravity attacks alone, but unfortunately doesn't make it into the top 10 because New Game 7 players and beyond will cut through him like butter. It's pretty easy to kill him using the same technique from the boss before, just use Scarlet Rot and Bloodhound Step. Margaret. Margaret is an interesting boss, essentially just Margie in disguise. He has an almost identical moveset too. Although this boss fight seems a little faster paced and has a few moves that cover a wide span of the area, such as those daggers that fall from the sky, or when he makes the ground all oily for some reason. Margaret can be frustrating to beat, but thankfully he hates slash attacks and frostbite. Strangely, you can also use Margie's shackle on him, and if you really want to do him dirty, you could use the cheesing technique we recently dropped. Moog. Moog is definitely up there as one of the most frustrating bosses. You all know what I'm gonna say. It's the blood ritual skill that puts this boss in the top 10 hardest bosses. As soon as you get his health halfway, boom, he will start stealing yours. If you don't heal at this point, you are pretty screwed. Your best bet with Moog is to either cheese him with poison arrows from outside the boss room, or weirdly enough, use bleed effect on him. I covered a bleed build that I used to take out most bosses in 3 hits that I'll share in the description. Definitely give that a go if you're struggling with Moog. Godskin Duo. At 8, we've got everybody's favourite pair, the Godskin Duo. These guys are hated in the Elden Ring community. Some think it's a lazy boss fight, some think they're too difficult. Whatever your thoughts are, one thing's for certain, everyone struggled with these guys. For anyone that didn't, let me know in the comments and be prepared to be called a liar by everybody else in the comments. Although they're frustrating, beating these guys can be pretty simple. Just grab yourself some of Sentinels' arrows. You can buy them from the merchant east of the main gate of the academy. Then use these arrows on the duo. 1 to 3 will put them down. And because they're Sentinels' arrows and not sleep bone arrows, the Godskin Duo will stay asleep until you start hitting them. So put them both to sleep, then hit them with the strongest thing you've got. Easy. Elden Beast. The only reason the Elden Beast made it this far in the list is for how much time you have to put into this fight. Almost the whole duration of this fight will have you chasing the Elden Beast back and forth, only to be shot with hundreds of different projectiles from afar. This boss fight can be incredibly frustrating, even to those fully decked out at New Game 14. If you're really unlucky, this endgame idiot can grab you and kill you in one hit with a ridiculous move. Your best bet against the Elden Beast is to smash your arcane up as high as you can, equip anything that helps buff incantations, and then spam pest threads when you're up close. And again, use Bloodhound Step, because it helps keep you away from the boss. Dragon Lord... I'm not even going to attempt to say that. Dragon Lord something. The only dragon worth mentioning on this list. This 2-headed electrical nightmare is both quick and has an incredible reach with attacks. Not only that, but it should get its place on this list just because finding this boss is ridiculous. The first and only prompt to lay down will cutscene teleport you into the boss room. The area you fight in is huge, but the fact the dragon can fly around, teleport, and has laser beams for breath makes the map feel so much smaller. The Dragon Lord is always pursuing you and doesn't ever really back off, something the Elden Beast needs to learn. It's a great boss fight, but incredibly difficult. For the best results, either use the technique mentioned before for the Elden Beast, or go with Rotten Breath to keep that damage ticking away even when he's in the sky. Fire Giant. This guy has killed me so many times. This guy has killed everyone so many times. He's in the top 5 for a reason. I don't think any of his attacks are weak. Most are pretty much a 1 to 2 hit kill. Then when you get Mr. Giant to his second phase, the endless fireballs are too much. Thankfully, he does have a weakness. Hit his ankle with any attack to do major damage. Rotten Breath does wonders here, Comet Azure, obviously, and Rivers of Blood. And no surprise here, I'd really recommend Bloodhound Step for this boss, especially as he has that stupid shield attack that blasts snow at you. Then once you're in a second phase, just aim for his arms. Radigan. Coming in at number 4 is that lovely chap, Radigan. He's got some incredibly difficult moves to contend with, especially that triple jump slam thing that he does with his hammer. He can teleport, he can catch your magic and throw it back at you. He also has an attack that will likely one-shot you. Basically, Radigan is nearly an unstoppable tank. However, there are a few things that absolutely melt him. One of the best ways is to hit him with anything that deals black flame damage, throw a black flame ball at him a few times, and you'll see his health keep depleting well after you chuck the fireball. Godfrey and Hoaraloo. Godfrey is ridiculous, and his second phase, Hoaraloo, is just as bad. This fight actually punishes magic users or anybody that fights at range. If you don't stick closely to Godfrey, he'll begin stomping, and the rhythm of the stomps will definitely throw you off here, with 1 or 2 of them being out of time. And then he'll finish you off with a big stomp that rips the ground apart and fills it with lava for some reason. To beat Godfrey, have somebody stay close and use melee, whilst you blast him with Rotten Breath from afar. Anytime the stomps come, just jump out of the way. You have a lot of time to avoid it while you're in the air. If you roll out of the way, it's still effective, but the window to avoid the attack is so much smaller. Then once he becomes Hoaraloo, it's time to do the opposite and stay well away from him. Spam him with anything bleed damage like Swarm of Flies, but then get out of there. Trust me, you're one Hoaraloo hug away from insta-death. Malakai. I probably died to Malakai more times than all of the other bosses put together. The Beast Clergyman before him isn't too difficult if you learn the attack patterns, or if you have Bloodhound Step equipped, but Malakai is a monster. The destined death he hits you with is no joke. Your best bet here is to use the pillars as cover, but make sure you stand back from the pillar, as Mali's attacks will just clip through. Once he's tuckered himself out, dip down from behind the pillar, hit him with preferably something at range like Comet Azure or Rotten Breath, and then get back behind that pillar. Play it slow and play smart. Like I've said in a lot of this video, use Bloodhound Step, because this boss moves quickly. Melania, the boss of all bosses, the one that makes your palms sweat, heart race, and swear a lot. Melania is arguably the hardest boss in Elden Ring. If it isn't for her waterfowl dance, then it's definitely the fact she heals every time she deals damage. There are a few great ways to cheese Melania that you can find on our channel, but if you're looking to beat the Blade of Miquella fair and square, it is possible. Very, very hard, but possible. The best way to defeat Melania is bleed, and luckily for you, I have the 2 best bleed build videos right here for you. I'll share them in the comments and the description. If you've not fought her yet, just make sure you run when her second phase kicks in. Trust me. Bonus boss, Mimic Tier. Then as an added bonus, let's talk Mimic Tier. The Mimic Tier boss fight can be incredibly difficult, and it could potentially be in the top 5, but the fact you can cheese them by stripping all of your armor and weapons off and then re-equipping when they spawn in makes the fight laughable. Using your highest level gear whilst the Mimic Tier rolls around and tries to punch you essentially makes it as weak as a basic enemy. But if you fight this boss legit, they can put up a pretty good fight. So that's the list. Go ahead and let me know the boss you struggled with the most down in the comments.